Faces dropped on Wednesday, December 4th. It's a Wall Pass Wednesday. We'll be taking your questions on the show. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. Let us know what you're thinking on this Wednesday, early in the off season, but moves are happening, and it looks like there will be a move in Central Florida announced today. Orlando City has used the now ubiquitous, and I know this is not the proper term, but I'm not a Star Wars head, so I'm not getting super specific. I think most people know this meme as Baby Yoda. I know You don't know, John. Do you know what the Baby Yoda thing is?
No, I just know that Yoda exists, and people were complaining last week about not why Yoda is the only of his kind. Why haven't we seen others of him?
What?
Where does he live?
That has nothing to do with any of this. You went down a completely different pathway that the trap door collapsed. The Baby Yoda meme that everybody is using for every possible thing on social media right now. Orlando City has used it to announce something at 10 o'clock, and the reports and rumors last night were that announcement very well could be Oscar Pareja as the new manager of Orlando City. Makes a lot of sense. Had been rumored previously. Luis Muzzi and Oscar Pareja worked together previously at FC Dallas. It's kind of a no-brainer. So you get Orlando City working on creating a philosophy, and you have Real Salt Lake yesterday, I think, doubling down on their philosophy. And this came up earlier in the week on the show about teams needing to create that. Now you're starting to see the value of it. And Real Salt Lake yesterday, if you missed the news, they have taken the interim tag off of Freddie Juarez as the manager and off of Elliot Fall as the general manager. These are your new manager and general managers for Real Salt Lake. And Deloy Hansen, the owner, said, we're growing players, but we're also growing administrative talent and coaches within the RSL system. I mean, that's it. That's what you're trying to do. And Juarez tied it back to Ajax. He says the best model in the world is Ajax. Since 1981, they've always fielded a homegrown player in the lineup. We want to win. These guys are competitors. We're going to have to do it different. Invest in our talent. That's what clubs who are at the level of a Real Salt Lake, and if you go back to the Forbes valuations, they're not the gospel here, but they give you a pretty good sense of what's going on. Real Salt Lake had one of the lowest revenues, one of the lowest turnovers in MLS, but they were also profitable and they were also competitive. They were third in the West last year. And a lot of that was from Freddie Juarez when he took over for Mike Petke. I really think this is a brilliant move from Real Salt Lake. And I agree with Matt Doyle. This is kind of cementing who Real Salt Lake is. Freddie Juarez is a guy who started in the academy, moved up to Real Monarchs, their second team, gets the opportunity on an interim basis with the first team, does well, and gets the job. That tells you what Real Salt Lake is all about. And that's the thing about, I think, any league, but especially MLS. Not every team is going to be Atlanta, LAFC, the Galaxy, NYC, Miami, and be big and bold and spend a lot of money and or be very flashy with their moves. Real Salt Lake's not going to be that. It doesn't mean you can't be competitive, and I think this is going to help them kind of even more understand, all right, what is our pathway forward? It is develop from within. Across the board. Players, staff, everything. Develop from within, and it will serve them well.
For me, this is what should have happened. And when you see what Freddie Juarez did when he was brought in, and you see the philosophy that Real Salt Lake has developed over time. For me, this is the next step in that. It was merit-based, and it's a development-based thing with Juarez and Elliot Fall. You do well, you move forward. You do well, you move forward. You do well, you move forward. You do well, you move up. So this, to me, made the most sense. and glad that after what Freddie Juarez did at the end of last season, that he's getting his chance. And you're having the opportunity to put your stamp and your philosophy on everything that you're doing, top down now. With this particular hire, I think that then the word cement is the one that keeps popping into my head, is that if this is going to be your way, this is what you've done, and this is those first steps in doing that and building it. And dropping Ajax. Ajax is definitely one of those ways that have done it. So referencing Ajax in your quotes in your press conference, that's definitely the model to follow. And I'm looking forward to seeing where RSL goes from here.
They've been there. I mean, that's the thing. This is not new. This is not a new direction. Orlando City, now, they are trying to create this. Oscar Pereira is about this. It's what he did at FC Dallas. It's what he did when he was there first in the academy, when Shellis Heinemann was the manager, and then when he came back from Colorado to take over the first team. It is developing from within. Orlando City has not had that. They have not had an identity, honestly, period. It's been mix and match and throw it together and hope to see what you get. If they go all in with Pareja and Muzi and take what those two did in Dallas, add more willingness to spend on top of it, you're talking about something that can be strong in Orlando. And RSL is in a lot of ways a model for Orlando City, but it feels like, and we'll have to wait and see, just judging from bringing in a player like Kaká, bringing in a player like Nani, they are more willing and have more resources to go add that extra layer on top. So we'll see if Pareja is hired today. We'll see if over time he is given the keys to really do things the way he wants to do, because I think what you're seeing in Utah is what you could start to see in terms of players coming through the system, also coaches coming through the system. I think you could start to see that in Orlando, and they need it because they don't have that identity. I think a lot of teams in the league have either found their identity or have started to find their identity. Orlando's one that hasn't. This is a move that could give them that. A couple other things from the Real Salt Lake move. So, Delroy Hansen, the owner, said about Elliot Fall, the general manager, because he's in the same situation. Elliot is the premier product of the technical staff. It was a long search. We measured 3 times. We looked close and far. The joy of this was how we produce administrative skill sets at RSL. Proved that Elliot was by far the best candidate to offer the job to at RSL. Hansen also said this about Juarez. When you look at Freddie and the progression that he has taken, he has the natural heart to develop. He will constantly develop players and help them improve their game, and he's done that for 10 years. And that's the track record you're talking about with Juarez. He mentioned Ajax, and I think a lot of people get hung up on Ajax as, okay, well, RSL is going to play 4-3-3 and da-da-da-da. Not necessarily. I think where Juarez was talking about was developing players and building guys from within and developing that philosophy inside and investing in the talent, like he said. When it was asked about how he wants his team to play, he said it's a team that's controlling the tempo of the ball. We're tactically moving the ball, also finding a balance of getting in behind. And the trend is now work our tail off to win the ball back as quickly as we possibly can. He's not going back strictly to 1970s Ajax and building from there. I think what he's doing is taking the idea of Ajax, developing talent, giving guys at young ages the skill sets to be successful on a bigger stage. But also he's taking modern trends. And the trend that he talks about, and this is something that Ajax has done historically, but it's been ramped up in recent years, that he says work our tail off to win the ball back as quick as we possibly can. That's that kind of, counter press. It's when you lose possession, you're immediately trying to regain it. It's something that, I guess in the modern times, Pep Guardiola kind of brought it to the fore, and then the German gegenpressing took it to another level where that became the whole system, not the possession around it that Guardiola in Barcelona and coming from the Johan Cruyff, train and development cycle and all of that, the German system that Klopp has started from flipped it. And the counter press became the system as opposed to an element of a system. So I think what Juarez is doing is, paying attention to what's going on in the game and paying attention to what's working for his younger teams in the club and paying attention to what he can do with the players that he has. Because I think when you get too rigid in a playing philosophy, which is different than a club philosophy, when you get too rigid in a playing philosophy, if you don't have the players who match that and you can't either develop them or buy them, you're stuck. And you never want to get stuck. I think Freddie Juarez has shown through his time that he has the ability to adapt. And that's going to be key for a manager who, is Freddie Juarez going to have a player, a big-name player come in that might not respect him in the same way they would a different name? Probably not. That's not who RSL is, and that works for him. He's going to have players who many times have developed from within the club who have looked up to him and the players that he's developed. So he's in a little bit different situation. He's going to be able to adapt to what's going on here, and I think he's done that in his 10 years at the club, first with the young kids, then with the second team, and now with the first team. He's the perfect fit for that club. Would he be the perfect fit for other clubs in the league? Maybe not. But at RSL, he fits who they are.
For me, when Ajax was mentioned, it was philosophy. It wasn't necessarily looking at formations and things like that. When I saw the quote, it's like, okay, you want to build from within. You want to have young players work their way up through the system. You want to have young players who, when they're ready, go ahead and get first team minutes. So that was my impression off the top when that word Ajax was mentioned. It wasn't stuck into a formational thing, but Freddie Juarez has earned his stripes through the RSL system. And for me, this was the right way to go. But my question for you, for Orlando, is if it is Pareja, and we know what his history is with Dallas and what he's been able to build with Dallas before he left and what FC Dallas was able to do. The question that I always have when it comes to Orlando is level of patience when it comes to getting into the playoffs, which is something that they haven't done. That to me is the biggest thing. And I just wonder how patient they're going to be in a build, even though you're bringing in Oscar Pareja to do exactly that.
I don't know if they've been impatient outside of the Adrian Heath firing. The Adrian Heath firing, I don't know what was said initially, and if you have followed much about Orlando City, there were some behind-the-scenes things with ownership at that time, too, that very well could have played into that decision to move on from Heath when they did in fairly early in 2016 in year 2. That felt too quick. Jason Kreis, when they made the move for him, they kind of had to at that point. Words that were coming out of that team, and Justin Merrim talked about it, others talked about it. It felt like that team was completely rudderless. They gave O'Connor a year and a half. I mean, my thing at the end of 2018 was that they needed to give him time. They needed to keep him into 2019. They did. There was nothing coming out of the 2019 season to make you think that it was turning around. Nothing. So you also had Luis Muzzi come in, and we know how this stuff goes. I mean, you bring in either new ownership or new general manager or new president or what have you, and they come in, and I think the smart ones don't make a bunch of changes straight away because they don't know the situation. But they come in, they observe, they watch, they're paying attention, and when the time is right, they want to bring their own guys in. And Luis Muzzi bringing in Oscar Pareja, that's bringing in one of your own guys. It's bringing in a guy with a pedigree. So it's not a surprise. It's the only one that I'm going to put down to a lack of patience is Heath. And I think there were extenuating circumstances with the ownership kind of falling apart at that time. You had the think Phil Rollins went into the background at that point. You had the Brazilian group take the front runner position in the ownership. I believe that was around the time that the Rollins, Kay, and Phil's marriage was disintegrating, and that played into it too, because Heath was Phil Rollins' guy. And when Rollins was not in the position of power, I think everything changed. And, yeah, they got antsy. But that's it. Christ, right time. O'Connor, right time. You have a different person in charge now, calling the shots on the soccer side. And Muzzy, who comes from a club that, was Muzzy the main man making the decisions in Dallas? No, he wasn't. Fernando Clavijo was. But Muzzy took over and kept it rolling and kept it to where it is now, which is in a good position. Pareja was there all the way through in Dallas. So you have two guys who can work together. You have two guys who know what it is to build something. And that's what it's going to take. It's what it's going to take. You're not developing homegrown talent in Orlando. Benji Michel's the first one, and I think he's a talented player, but you really haven't developed internally from an academy perspective at all. So you've got to do that. You've got to figure out what your USL League One team is going to be. They changed managers with that group mid-season last year. They really struggled because they just didn't have that base to fall back on. They didn't have a strong academy to lean on. Pareja's got to build the development pipeline all the way through from 12s on up. And he's probably got to do a lot of work in terms of building relationships in the soccer scene in Central Florida from a player development standpoint. Because Orlando City has just not gotten over that hump of developing talent. And others have. Others who have come in at the same time, New York City, you've got homegrowns who are going to Europe. That says all you need to say. Atlanta United, same thing. You got homegrowns that are expected to be very important. You've got homegrowns who have played professional minutes. It's not happening here. It's just not. So it's something that Orlando City's got to get right. I think Pareja's the guy, and all expectations, it's pointing to Oscar Pareja being announced as the manager of Orlando City at 10 o'clock this morning. We're going to take a quick break. Let us know your thoughts on philosophy at the club level. Let us know your thoughts on Orlando City's potential move. I think you have to be wary of what Orlando can be under Pareja now. This is not the moves that they've made before, and I'm probably a little biased because I've been a big fan of Oscar Pareja's work for a long time, but I think if he ends up in Orlando, they have the potential to be a strong club, a very strong club. If you take what he did in Dallas and you add that willingness to spend for bigger names on top of what you develop, can be a perfect storm, and we'll see how long it takes Pareja to build it. But we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, December 4th, well past Wednesday. We will be taking your questions and comments on Twitter at Soccer Down here. Let us know what you're thinking about on a Wednesday morning here in the off season. Some news yesterday, some rumors also to update you on re-entry draft, second stage, 2 players picked. Juan Agudelo, Toronto, Saad Abdul Salam, Cincinnati. Those clubs have 7 days to issue a genuine offer now. Basically, you get first crack at signing these guys. When, if you don't sign them, they become free agents. That's what the second stage was all about. I think for all the people who have, argued that you need to get rid of all of these different stages and things and this and that, when you look at the number of players that have moved in waivers in re-entry, yeah. I think you can streamline all of it. If you need to do it one way, if you're not going to go completely full, and I know in the Athletic article that Tenorio and Stajkal put together about their idea of what MLS should do rules-wise, they said get rid of all of it and go free agency completely if you're out of contract. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not saying it shouldn't. I'm saying I don't think that happens yet. I do think it is a very reasonable step for the league in the CBA to drill all of it down to one step. If you don't qualify for free agency, and I think it's a pretty safe expectation that it's not going to be as high of a bar as it's been. It's not going to be 28 years old and 8 years of service. That'll come down. But if you don't qualify for free agency and you're out of contract, there is one waiver / re-entry, whatever you want to call it, one process. Everybody gets a chance to draft. Guys who aren't picked then go into the free agent pool. Done. Keep it simple. We don't need 3 different things here when, a grand total of about 12 players moved?
Yeah.
Something like that. So
yeah,
it's not needed. So now everybody who is out of contract is a free agent. So we will see where guys end up. There's a lot of names out there. There's a lot of guys out there that I could see Atlanta United interested in. I'd mentioned center back depth yesterday. But when you get to the point that, Atlanta was, when you saw that only 2 players had been picked ahead of you, Atlanta, I want to say they picked 21st. So you would have had, 5 teams picking after you, and then the 2 teams that actually picked would have had a second-round pick if they wanted to. There's not really much of a need to pick anybody because you can just go talk to people. There's not going to be many picks after you of guys that you might have wanted to get. So, it is what it is. I think there's some center backs out there that Atlanta United could be interested in. They need some depth in that position. That's the main one now. With the Brooks Lennon acquisition, you have the flanks pretty well covered. You have your outside back depth pretty well covered. You might want to get one more. But center back is the weakest spot. With Pogba gone, with Parkhurst retiring, you need some extra depth there. Whether you're playing 4 in the back or 3 center backs, either way, you need some extra depth there. You have George Campbell coming in, but how much are you expecting him to be making 18s or playing with Atlanta United too? That's going to be the question mark there. So the free agency market will definitely heat up in the league. The transfer market is starting to heat up. Today NA reporting that San Jose is in the driver's seat of the Alan Pulido sweepstakes. There's still buzz on Chicago. Orlando's kind of dropped off from that. Kansas City's kind of dropped off from that. It seems to be a back and forth as to who you're talking to, if they think he's going to go to San Jose or if they think he's going to go to Chicago. So stay tuned on that. That'll be a big move when it goes down. He'll be in MLS next year. I think that part is a pretty safe assumption now. But where, we'll have to wait and see. Speedway Soccer in Nashville is getting credible reports about a center back signing, 34-year-old Honduran international Brian Bekeles. Bekeles is currently with Olympia in Honduras. He played over 100 matches over 4 seasons for Necaxa in Liga MX. Obviously spent time in Honduras before all this, played in Portugal as well. 66 caps for the Honduran national team. And if you slot Bekeles into a back line for Nashville that has right now at center back Romney, Anibaba, Ken Tribbett, who moved up from the USL Nashville squad. You've got guys on the left in Daniel Lovitz, who could maybe play as a center back in a 3. Madranda, who's not really that guy. Washington, more of a wing back, outside back, another USL guy moving up. Eric Miller played as a right center back in a 3 at New York City a couple of times. Dome Toronto didn't really care for it. You don't have anybody else on the right side. Bekeles gives you, I think, a sturdier option. Romney and Anibaba have both been guys who have played a good bit in the league. Tribbett, not so much. But neither have been 34-game-a-year starters, like regular guys. So if you get a bit of a rotation with Bekeles, with his experience, with Romney, with Anibaba could move over to the right side, or the left side even, as we saw him do for New England. He's done both. You've got a little more flexibility. Feels like a good signing because it's probably not a big one. I don't even think it would be a TAM deal, more than likely, for a 34-year-old Honduran center back. Good depth, good piece who could probably start and give you a year or two. It feels like a no-brainer.
Yeah, and that was, for me, that's what I was looking at as a depth piece. Obviously, for me, the age for Bekeles is the issue, but when you can... If you figure out how to fit him in and bring him in as a depth piece, that kind of stuff,
I
for
think
me,
he might be more than a depth piece, but yeah. I think he's going to get his fair share of starts. I think right now you would probably be splitting them between Romney, Anibaba, and Bekeles, and Bekeles could end up being the best of the 3. It's not just a backup role. Depth, but when I'm saying depth, I'm not saying it in that he's not going to start. I don't think that's the case. I think he'll get his share of starts, and he could end up getting more starts than the others. He's in the mix with all the center backs. I think Tribbett is probably the depth piece. I think Washington is probably the depth piece on the left. Bekeles could come in and get time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But no, like I said, for me, I looked at 34, and I'm like, okay. But, once again, if you know how to manage your body, manage your minutes, and manage your exertion in a system, then 34 becomes less of an issue.
Yeah, you can't take just a number on a sheet of paper and say that he's not going to play because of that. Zlatan did a lot of things at 37. So, it is what it is. You never know. All right, big rumors out there. First one, Sebastian Salcedo, Bofo Salcedo from Real Salt Lake, who they let go on a free, rumored to be signing with Pumas in Liga MX. Don't know if Pumas would have paid a transfer fee. Don't know if it was a situation where RSL kind of did a solid by Salcedo, who's been there before and moved around a couple times and come back. This one's not quite the same as other deals where you get into the situation with letting a guy go on a free, because if I'm not mistaken, they've I think gotten money from Salcedo leaving before, because he went to Mexico and came back. So, it is what it is. You wish you could get something for it, but that might not have been on the cards, and you might have just wanted to cut your losses. I was a little surprised by this one. I like Salcedo a lot. I've always wondered why he hasn't played more. The inconsistency has been the biggest question mark, and, we'll see if he can develop some of that consistency with Pumas, because he's a player that has been part of U.S. youth national teams, and he has that level of talent. It's just being at that level consistently.
Yeah, and as someone who watches Liga MX and how absolutely crazy it is, and seeing what Pumas has been able to do this season, both the good and the bad, if he's rumored to check in there, it'll give me another reason to watch on the weekends very late at night.
Pumas did not make the Liga, correct?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, so they're looking to upgrade. Pumas was 13th, so they didn't really do a whole lot of good this season. They only scored 21 goals in 18 matches.
Yikes.
It's just not where they need to be. So can Saucedo lift them a bit? We'll have to wait and see on that. The two bigger rumors, we mentioned Nacho Fernandez of River Plate. His agent went on a River Plate show on radio. A lot of the teams in Argentina kind of have their own show, and sometimes it's supporter-driven, sometimes it's media-driven, but it's a show specifically talking about their club. So Nacho Fernandez's agent went on one of these shows and said, we heard about those rumors linking him to the LA Galaxy. It's true that Guillermo Barros Escaloto knows Nacho very well. They were teammates at Gimnasia, but nobody from the Galaxy has reached out to them, so there's nothing. So, looks like nothing in that regard now, unless, of course, he could be playing games. You never know. It does happen, but sounds like the Nacho Fernandez move to the Galaxy isn't on. One that has popped up this morning, Sebas Giovanelli of Sport 890 in Montevideo, Uruguay, reporting that Napoli is working with agent Pablo Betancourt to get LAFC's Brian Rodriguez to Italy. Now, remember, Brian Rodriguez signed for LAFC in the summer. He was really looked at as the replacement for Diego Rossi, who was getting interest from Fiorentina, and they didn't sell him because they're trying to win the MLS Cup. That didn't happen. Looks like Rossi could be going in this upcoming window. Rodriguez could be going. Rodriguez has been playing for Uruguay at the senior national team level and scoring goals. So he has turned a lot of heads very, very quickly. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is Peñarol, and this is according to reports out of Uruguay. Peñarol, his former club, will get 25% of the next sale. So it's to their benefit to see a sale happen now, to go ahead and get paid. It could be a substantial move. I mean, you're talking about a very young player. You're talking about a player who is breaking into one of the most respected national teams in the world, and not just getting some minutes here and there, but scoring goals. Turning heads quickly. LAFC is going to have an interesting situation here, and maybe that's why, even though LAFC folks downplayed it, maybe that's why there was rumors about Brian Lozano from Santos Laguna headed to LAFC. If LAFC can pull off a move here where they sell Diego Rossi and Brian Rodriguez in the same window and bring in $50 million,
yeah,
well, there you go. And then you need a winger. So keep an eye on it. This is a new one. I had not seen anything on it until today. It is out of Uruguay. You do have to take South American rumors with a gigantic salt lick. You have to be very careful with them. But this is not, a team blog. This is not even a team radio show. This is a fairly big name that covers the game in Uruguay. So keep an eye on it. It makes sense. Napoli's crazy. We all know this. So, you're talking about a top young talent in the world that, hey, LAFC might pocket money faster than they expected on Brian Rodriguez, and it might be too big of an offer to say no to. So keep an eye on all of that. LAFC could be a very interesting watch here in the offseason.
Especially if you can pull in $50 million and then turn it and bring in other talent.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, what they've done, for sure. For sure. I mean, you've got a track record now. And
yes,
that's the
exactly.
thing, is you've got that track record of success. So you have more money to work with. And I don't think money is an issue for that club, but if you have more money to work with, then boom, you're in great shape.
Once again,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's just adding more fuel to the fire of when it comes to teams in MLS. We're being sellers and turning talent and churning talent and bringing more talent in. This would be another step in that direction.
Well,
another franchise.
This is different, though. This is a guy who you've had for 6 months. I mean, this was a guy who was expected to be the guy next year. So this is an even different move where it's not even Diego Rossi, who you got early on. He played 2 years before you moved on. That was the Miguel Almiron pathway. This is a new pathway. Like, go basically like speculating, going, searching for gold, and you find some and you immediately flip it. That's what this is turning into. And hey, if that's what it is, that's what it is.
Yeah.
If that's where you are, if Rodriguez wants to go to Europe, if the offer is good enough, if everybody's happy, then you do it and you get the next one. Mm-hmm. That's what happens. So keep an eye on what happens here. Jeff Carlisle this morning confirming the rumors Oscar Pareja will be Orlando City's next manager. That announcement is expected later this morning, and they tweeted it about something at 10 o'clock. So Orlando City, I'm very optimistic about this kind of move and what it does for Orlando City, and I think it makes them a stronger club. I think it's probably going to take him a year because he's got to get that roster firmed up a little bit. They've got to go out and find some talent, and in long term, it's going to take him more than a year to build the academy to where it's doing what it should be. And that's the longer picture here. But short term, with money to spend, and Orlando has generally been a club that's been comfortable spending money. You're going to be more competitive in 2020 with Oscar Pareja on the touchline, period. Are you a playoff team yet? That's way too early to say. As you're currently constructed, no, you're not. You need more. But there's a lot of teams that are in that boat. So a lot of moves are going to happen between now and the opening of training camp, and then you're going to have a lot of moves that happen between then and the opening of the season. Reportedly, according to Stephen Goff of the Washington Post, we will hear the home openers for teams tomorrow. And he had reported earlier in the week that we would get to hear the full schedules before the holidays, which would be the earliest we've seen it. But home openers could be announced tomorrow. Be able to start putting some dates down on your calendar. It's the CBA is complicating this offseason for sure. There's no way around it. But I do feel like this can still be the biggest, craziest offseason the MLS has had in terms of selling and buying and upgrading talent across rosters. It feels like the jump-off point. The jump-off point is wobbly because of the CBA. That it's you're out on the edge of the diving board and it's bouncing way too much. But I still think you're going to get a good dive out of it. You're going to get a good score from the judges because of everything that is just falling into place for the league and where it sits in the worldwide market. Let's take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to dig into the Twitter timeline right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here. December 4th edition of the show. It's a Wall Pass Wednesday. That means you guys throw questions. We throw answers back to you. What do we have?
Well, getting back to the topic at the end of the last segment, LAFC. Lewis Martin says that LAFC getting huge transfer dollars is great for the league. That is MLS 3.5 or 4.0.
Yeah, I don't know where it actually fits in. I mean, I kind of feel like it's still part of 3.0.
Yeah.
Depends on how if you're looking at 3.0 as just bringing in younger talent that isn't brand name selling jerseys like Atlanta did. That's where, I kind of started with that whole idea and that mindset. I included the sales of that talent as part of the process. I think we're still we haven't gotten to 4 is where I would keep it. I think if this is the next step of 3, if it's 3.5, okay, I can buy that. But yeah, this is part of the process that started of signing younger talent that is an asset that can be sold. That's a big part of it. It's not just getting young talent that's going to be here forever. I think maybe 4.0 is that. Maybe 4.0 is signing young talent and having them stay. Maybe it's signing, younger talent or younger talent choosing to come to MLS rather than play in European leagues. I don't know exactly what 4.0 is yet, but 3.0 in my book is still, it's the combination of signing young talent and then selling it. Because I think they go hand in hand. And this is a step. I think the door opened with Almiron to Newcastle. I think Alphonso Davies was another element to it, and his move to Bayern Munich. Now if it starts happening in bigger numbers, maybe that takes it to 3.5.
What then would developing young talent internally and then having them stay instead of going overseas, what would that be?
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily where you want to be. I mean, how many clubs in the world do that?
I don't know.
Not
but
many.
I mean, when you have young talent who would sit there and say, "No, I'm good here," even though they would, be able to ply their wares on the world
I don't
stage.
think it's that. I don't think it's stay here forever because, I mean, let's talk about the best players in the world. How many have actually done that? Messi went to Barcelona at a very young age. He was in Rosario first at Newell's at the youngest ages of their development system, and then he went to Barcelona, and he's been there ever since. Ronaldo's moved around. Everybody's moved around. So I don't think that's realistic. I just don't think that's the way any of it works anymore. If you get a couple of those, cool, but it's incredibly rare. I think it's... I mean, and I don't think it's a 4.0 step. I think it's the players, instead of making that deal to go to Europe at 18, 19, either not signing the MLS deal like a player we'll talk about in hour number 2, Uli Yanez, saying, no, I'm not going to sign the MLS deal. I'm going to go at 17, 18 and sign with a European club, or, like the Paxton Pomacall situation at 19 where he might get interest. Chris Durkin, who went over to Europe. It's going to be maybe those guys deciding to stay longer, and instead of going to a stepping stone move in Europe, going from more like Alphonso Davies, who's already done it, going from Vancouver to Bayern Munich. Like that maybe is another step in the process, but it's kind of already in motion in some ways. And we'll just have to continue to see it evolve. But no, I don't think MLS ever gets to a point where you have a bunch of players who develop here and stay with one club for their whole career. Because it just doesn't happen much in the world.
Tomka says he's not going to lie. He's enjoyed the absolute domination of Orlando and their persistent flailing. But for the good of the league, the sport, the region, etc., Orlando needs some success, just not against us.
They're going to have success with Pareja. I really think they will. So how long it takes is the question. But I think he will bring success to them because they need it. I agree it's good for the league if teams are successful. And, man, they have not been successful. And that has to change. You're seeing it in the stands. When you're reading Orlando very clearly, in their seats because they're not full, and that's happening far too often, and it's not a knock on Orlando fans at all. You've had 5 years of watching this, and it got worse for the first 4. This year was the first year where you didn't have a worse point total than the year before. Small victories. But that's what you've been dealing with. And if you're being asked to put money down to go watch that, why would you? So I think when this move happens and when you start to see the effects of it, and when you start to see a better team that fits what the supporters are looking for and what the casual fans are looking for, those fans will come back. And Orlando will be just fine. And I do think that they will be more competitive in 2020. I want to see what moves they make before I say that they can make the playoffs. I thought they could make the playoffs last year, and O'Connor just never got them over the hump. You've pretty much erased your whole central midfield. So however you replace it is going to define how good they can be. I do think they have talent to build from, and I think Pareja's a very talented manager.
Marshall Voigt with today's PSA. Today's Aberdeen Rangers match streamed on BR Live. For those not subscribed to the service, they can watch for $2.99.
Very cool. BR Live has rights to the Scottish Premier League, but they don't show all the games. They just pick up pretty much Celtic and Rangers games. So if you're wanting to watch the new friends in Aberdeen on a regular basis, you have to subscribe to their network, Red TV. You can get to it through the Aberdeen website. Good service. I watched the game last weekend on Red TV. Good call. It was a well-produced broadcast. It was all done internally. Very cool. I really enjoyed it. But this is one where if you want to sample Aberdeen, you don't want to commit to a monthly subscription like Red TV has, then yeah, you can do the game-by-game purchase and watch the game today. And this is a rivalry match. It's not the Old Firm. It's not Rangers Celtic, but Rangers and Aberdeen do not care for one another at all. And Aberdeen is really trying to knock Rangers off of that number 2 spot in Scotland. And it's not going to be easy. I mean, we've talked about Rangers and their financial issues. It's no secret. They're still having them. But you're still talking about revenues that dwarf what Aberdeen has. So, can they sustain it? That's going to be a big question mark. But right now, they're outspending Aberdeen by a huge amount. So they have more talent on their roster. But Aberdeen is a club that is trying through a big part through this partnership with Atlanta United to better punch above their weight. This is a big measuring stick for them. Aberdeen's number 3 in the league right now. If they can knock off Rangers and start to sneak into a number 2 spot with all the different things happening on the coefficient level with the UEFA competitions and Champions Leagues and Europa Leagues and a new Europa League conference thing that's starting next year and where teams will slot in. If Aberdeen can get to number 2, they could have a shot at getting into the Champions League. They'd have to go through a bunch of qualification rounds. But yes, that would be possible. If they stay at number 3, they'll have a much better shot of getting into the Europa League next year in the group stage. And when you look at the differences in revenue between teams that make the group stage of the Europa League and teams that get knocked out in the qualification rounds, it's dramatic. And that's one reason why Celtic and Rangers have the money that they have. They're consistently there. So Aberdeen's trying to get there. The process starts by beating those 2 teams in league competition.
Also on the board this morning, there were some fines given out yesterday by the MLS League Office and Commissioner Don Garber to Josie Altidore, to Matias Almeida, and to Mark Dos Santos. Nathan Pugh, in response to that last one, says, as one with a small child, Mickey Mouse is crucial in my day-to-day, so I don't find Mickey to be amateur at all. He works multiple television shows and movies and actually has done so for many decades. If anything, he's more professional than any of us. Hashtag Wild Pass Wednesday.
You're gonna do it like that?
Considering that Mark Dos Santos yesterday, or at some point.
No, not yesterday.
Not yesterday.
Long time ago.
Okay, a long time ago. Let's see. Dos Santos criticized the long break between seasons for clubs that have been eliminated prior to the playoffs. Quote, players at the top level, they have 3 weeks, 1 month maximum on break, Dos Santos said. And this is from Pro Soccer USA. I'm telling you, 3 months and a half of a break in a soccer season is Mickey Mouse. It's amateur. It doesn't happen in the world, end quote. So they're going from October 6th to February 29th between games. So Mark Dos Santos was less than pleased.
Yeah, but he's also not telling you the whole truth, because when he says, 3 months and a half of a break in a soccer season is Mickey Mouse, he's not factoring in training sessions. He's not factoring in preseason. It is longer than most. That is true, but it is not the way he's portraying it. We talked about this on the show when this comment was made back at the end of the season. It's longer. I don't like that it's longer. It needs to be shorter, but it is not that. When you look at the Bundesliga break, 3 months. La Liga, 3 months. Premier League, 3 months between last game and this game. When you look at MLS and you look at a team that doesn't make the playoffs, October 6th to February 29th. It's too long. Preseason for Vancouver should start. If January 11th was a date that I think Seattle said they were starting for CONCACAF, maybe Vancouver starting a week after that. No, not 2 weeks. Maybe 1 week after. That's generally how it went. Anyway, it's too long. It's not as long as he's trying to say that it's long. It's 3 months longer than anywhere else. No, that's not the case. But when you come out and call the league that you work in Mickey Mouse, you're probably going to get something happen to you, and he got some kind of a fine. It's silly that it took this long to announce the fine. That's the part that I don't really understand, but whatever. He did get his fine, and there you go.
Josie Altidore fined for comments criticizing the officiating in MLS Cup final. Almeida was similarly fined for post-game comments criticizing the refs during San Jose's match against Atlanta United on September 21st.
Yeah, and I don't blame him a bit, because that was craziness that he got sent off in the way he was. So, anyway, all right. What else we have on the timeline? We got a few more minutes before Mike Conti joins us at the top of the hour.
Nice. Emery Russell, based on the list of possible CONCACAF Champions League opponents for Atlanta, which would be your top choice based purely off of locale? Portmore.
Why?
It's Jamaica, man.
Just that simple?
Yeah, never been. Figured I'd go. I'm going. The boss has decided that Atlanta United, wherever Atlanta United is in round one, we're going. But never been to Jamaica. Thought it'd be kind of cool, so I'd say Portmore.
Strictly on locale, and I will include the venue in the locale portion. Saprissa, Leon, Portmore, San Carlos. Costa Rica was great, so going back to either the Costa Rican teams would be just fine. Jamaica for the same reasons John said. Leon because it's a big club and a cool stadium, and it'd be a big matchup. From a, what do you want to see because you want to win the tournament? I'll take San Carlos, take Portmore, I'll take Alianza in El Salvador, and I would take Comunicaciones. I would rank them. I would probably go
Portmore.
I would go Portmore number 1, Comunicaciones number 2.
San Carlos?
No, I would go Alianza then San Carlos.
Okay. We went into Percy Herrera's thoughts a little bit on soccer over there from the Brewhouse Cafe and their 9,412 TVs. But Percy wanted to ask about our thoughts on Megan Rapinoe winning Ballon d'Or.
Julie Ertz should have won it. Julie Ertz should have won Golden Ball in the World Cup, in my opinion, too. I think Rapinoe won it because she got the headlines. And that's not a knock. It's not a knock on Rapinoe. I mean, Rapinoe had a good World Cup. I don't even know if I would say she had a great World Cup. She scored a lot of penalties, and she had to step up in those moments and put them away, but she also was injured and didn't play in the semifinal. Or didn't start the semifinal. So, and then you take the Ballon d'Or, it's not just national team form, it's club form too, and Reign FC didn't make the playoffs. She missed a lot of time there. It's just Julie Ertz should have. Yeah, that's what I'm getting to. Julie Ertz was the better U.S. representative than Rapinoe and Morgan, in my opinion. Sam Kerr probably carried Australia more than any of them carried the U.S. team solo, and Kerr also, was Golden Boot, MVP of the NWSL. Got Chicago to the final. Julie Ertz was part of that as well. I think you could have went either way. I would have probably edged it to Ertz because of the World Cup success as well. But so often in a World Cup year, whether it's the men or the women, the Golden Ball winner of the World Cup wins the Ballon d'Or, which the Ballon d'Or is not supposed to just be national team. It is supposed to be club, but you saw it with Luka Modric, who had the great World Cup. He won Ballon d'Or. You saw it with Cannavaro in 2006. There wasn't really another compelling candidate. He won it. Probably one of the last times you'll see a defender win it. It's a silly contest. And World Cup years make it sillier. So it is what it is. It's not to knock Rapinoe. I think some people get very defensive when you say that, but talked about it all summer on the World Cup dates. Rapinoe had a great tournament. She showed up in the big moments that she had to show up in, but I think there were more important players in the U.S. team in winning that World Cup. Ertz and Lavelle top the list for me.
No, I agree with you there. For me, it was Ertz over Rapinoe. Once again, not slamming Rapinoe. But, for me, it would have been Julie Ertz would have been my top U.S. nominee in all of that process.
All right, let's take a break. Let's get Mike Conti on the line, check in with our buddy on all of the off-season stuff going on. I want to get his thoughts on Orlando and hiring Oscar Pereja. We'll talk to Mike on the other side right after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
John's telling stories about Thanksgiving as we come back from break. Didn't hear all of that one. Man, craziness. All right, hour number 2, Soccer Down Here. It's underway. This is what happens on a Wednesday, and this is what happens when Mike Conti joins us. What's up? Maybe it's what happens when Mike Conti joins us. There we go.
It got bent, and then what happened, or is that a rest of the story for off-the-air purposes?
Well, no, the wall prong got bent and almost lodged itself into the phone, and I had to contort and twist the wall prong and the charger to get it out of my phone, and then go to Walmart on Thanksgiving night to get another charger.
Oh.
Where the lines were out the door because thousands of folks wanted to purchase the 65-inch television special that was on as an early Black Friday special at this particular Walmart.
Yeah. Well, if it's the Walmart I'm thinking of, at least it was in close proximity to your family Thanksgiving.
It was. It was about 10 minutes away from the temporary lodgings, but nevertheless, it was the lines out the door.
So this wasn't the Walmart in walking distance from your permanent lodging.
No. This was a relocation that we had for the holiday. So yeah, let's just say it was interesting watching folks several aisles deep in the food section at this particular Walmart, standing in line behind folks with inflatable balloons that said 65-inch Philips TV line starts here. And I got out alive.
Well, welcome to Wall Pass Wednesday, folks. I was at Indiana. I was in Indianapolis with the Hawks, and there's that shopping mall in downtown Indianapolis. And it's funny that you bring this up, John, because Dominique Wilkins lost his headphone adapter, and he was asking me if I had a 3/8-inch mini to 1/4-inch stereo adapter, and I said, no, I don't, but I'm walking over to the mall to get lunch, so I'll pick one up for you. And I didn't realize, because I haven't been in a shopping mall in a while, like Radio Shack does not exist anymore.
I know.
Is it completely gone, or is it just completely, is it cut back a ton?
I think it's completely gone.
Oh, that's a sad
because my Google searches for Radio Shack in Indianapolis came up with nothing.
Oh, wow.
So then I thought, okay, well, I'll go to GameStop. Surely they'll have it. No. And that was it. I went to a mini mart, a convenience store, like 2 or 3 Walgreens. None of them had it. So I ended up wasting 2 hours on Black Friday in Indianapolis trying to find a headphone adapter for Dominique. And it turns out the hotel concierge had one for him the whole time anyway. So,
nice.
I don't know who had the worst holiday experience at a major retailer between John and I, but maybe we're 1 and 1A.
Apparently, Radio Shack does have stores. They
still had a few, yeah.
Man, I'll tell you, Radio Shack, that used to be my go-to when I was doing high school football in Chatham County and Bullock County and Effingham County, and John knows what I'm talking about, all those Savannah area counties. Invariably I'd always forget a piece of equipment, and there was always a Radio Shack in every little town, which,
got to go to the Radio Shack in Guyton to try to get you a cable.
Guyton. I actually think I've shopped at that one, for a power inverter or something like that. Or the Radio Shack in Baxley for a stereo adapter or something like that. So good times. I hope our Soccer Down Here listeners are enjoying this trip down memory lane.
Seriously. Well, let's spin it. So I don't think Orlando was shopping at Radio Shack when they went out and hired Oscar Pareja. It's official now.
Wow. Wow. So I was in a meeting this morning. I did not see that.
Yeah, just happened.
Good hire, I guess. A couple questions would be, how patient are they going to be with him? Are they going to let him have a role in heavily recrafting the roster to fit what he wants? Because right now, I mean, you have an assemblage of pieces where I think Nani would obviously fit in. But, do guys like Sasha Kljestan fit into what he wants to do? I don't know. But that feels like a really good hire. That's a good, solid hire by Orlando City. I think it's a sign that they're willing to maybe think a little bit outside the box compared to what they've done in the past, but still find someone who has MLS experience, who has ties to the league, and will give that club some credibility.
Yeah, I think Luis Muzzi being there and having worked with Oscar in Dallas probably changes the conversation a little bit. It's a must. You had to go with a guy like this that's not just a manager coming in who's had success, but somebody who has built something. And that's the biggest need for Orlando City. It's building a pipeline. They have not been relevant in terms of developing talent. They haven't had players come through. They don't have a base to fall back on. It's shown with Orlando City B that they had shut the doors on for a year because they didn't have enough players to have it make sense. Now, you've got a guy who built Dallas's academy, not quite from scratch, but mostly. They're one of the best in the country, and it paid off with talent at the first-team roster. And now you have them in Orlando. Makes them a threat.
Yeah, and he's been a winner. I mean, he got Colorado to the playoffs. There was a point in time in the 2018 season where Dallas was controlling their own destiny for Supporters Shield. I think he went to a conference final with Dallas, if I'm remembering correctly.
Well, he won a Supporters Shield in 2016. He won the Open Cup in 2016. Injury to Mauro Diaz at the end of the year affected them in the postseason. I mean, he's had not just the building type of success, he's had legit success.
Yeah. Now, I like it. I didn't follow Xolos too closely this year. Really, I mean, the only time I paid attention to Xolos was when Atlanta United's reserves played their reserves in that closed-door friendly out in Fullerton, the match that we did. So I don't really know what happened with Xolos this year.
Middle of the pack.
Yeah. So, but it's a good hire. I mean, I just, again, I hope there's patience. I hope he got some guaranteed years on his contract because Orlando seems to be the place where good coaches go to die. But it's a good move for Orlando. Now let's see where they go from there. Let's see if there's a dramatic roster overhaul or if they keep their nucleus intact. I think we saw some signs at the end of last season that they were trending in the right direction. They just needed to build more chemistry. And obviously when you bring an impactful player in late July or early August, that doesn't give you a whole lot of time. Let's see where they go from here. But I like that hire. I think that's a good, solid hire by Orlando.
And then on the flip side, Mike, the other hire yesterday, RSL, pulled the interim tag off of Freddie Juarez. So
I think that's the right move.
Freddie gets a full one.
Yeah, I think that's the right move. They played very well for him after Mike Petke was fired. So that feels like the right move. Now, things have gotten a little interesting with RSL, obviously, with Brooks Lennon gone. And did I see that Sebastian Saucedo might be gone as well now?
Gone. He's going to go to Pumas in Mexico, it looks like. They bring him back.
Right. So, I mean, they're going through a little bit of a tweak right now roster-wise, but and obviously, I mean, you've got to replace Nick Raimondo. But they played hard for him. They played well for him. They seem to like him. I like to see interim coaches who have success coaching under that tag being rewarded for it. I think that happens way too infrequently in sports, where you can have an interim coach that can kind of change the mood in the locker room, change the tone of the team, go out and have success, but still, the front office gets shiny new toy syndrome and they go out and they forget everything that the interim coach did. I'm glad that Real Salt Lake resisted that temptation and stuck with him. That's a good hire.
Philadelphia also making some news this morning. They have renewed their jersey sponsorship with Bimbo Bakeries, and they're going to be doing something a little different on the secondary kit. It's going to be a different brand under the Bimbo Bakery level, and I wonder where they're going to go with it on that secondary kit. I think you have an idea of where they're going to go.
Well, I think it would be incredibly smart of them. I'm just looking up on their website to confirm that this is one of their brands.
I'm just about sure that it is.
It's actually not. It's actually not. So I think you knew where I was going with this.
Yeah.
I was wondering if Tasty Cake was under the Bimbo umbrella, but it is not. If the Union had a Tasty Cake kit, that would sell out in every store in southeastern Pennsylvania, because Tasty Cake is that beloved a brand. But Bimbo does have Entenmann's, which is very, very popular in the Northeast. And they have I think this is a brand of cheesesteak meats called beefsteak.
I saw somebody post that one.
So maybe
that on the front of the shirt. That's kind of amazing.
Maybe. I mean, Philly loves their cheesesteaks. I don't, but Philadelphia loves it. But no, for some reason I thought Bimbo had Tasty Cake, but I guess not. They have
Tasty Cake? Here's your Tasty Cake info. Tasty Cake is owned by Flowers. Flowers Foods is headquartered in Thomasville, Georgia.
Georgia, right. Yeah, that was very controversial when that sale happened. Everyone up in Philadelphia was very concerned that the Georgians were going to contaminate their Tasty Cakes. But I don't know if you've noticed this or not in Kroger. Like the Georgia, Florida Tasty Cakes that we get in our stores down here are completely different than the Philadelphia Tasty Cakes. Completely different.
Or just different.
We might have listeners in Thomasville, so I'm going to keep my mouth shut on that one.
Got it.
Well, put it to you this way. Up in Pennsylvania, if you buy a Tasty Cake pie, it actually comes in a little pie tin. It's not fried. It's not glazed like it's
not just
an
in the
actual
plastic
pie
that you have to
open
properly.
Like the Tasty Cake pies that they sell in Georgia and Florida are those fried glazed pies that get sold at prison commissaries. So, some people love those types of pies. I
kind of like them. I'm not gonna
lie. Yeah. I mean, some people do. That is not my favorite. So, but that was really controversial when that sale went down because, Tasty Cake's an institution up in Philadelphia. And anytime, heck, it would be like if Coca-Cola was sold to a consortium in like Holland or Belgium or something like that. I think we would all be apoplectic here in Atlanta.
InBev takes over Coca-Cola.
Exactly. Yeah, we don't want that.
It's ridiculous.
So yeah, I mean, hey, look, still, even if it's not Tasty Cake, if the Union have an Entenmann's kit in 2020, I will buy.
That's a good one. You could do so much with beefsteak on the front of the shirt.
You really could.
Love the ridiculousness of that.
They also have Boboli. Do you remember the Boboli bread shells that you could make pizza on? They have that too.
Yeah.
Now, here's a dark horse off the board pick for the shirt sponsor. It could be Stroman, which is a brand of white bread that they sell at grocery stores in the Philadelphia area. That's a Bimbo brand as well. And Thomas English muffins, which we all love. And Sara Lee. And nobody doesn't like Sara Lee.
Exactly. Nobody doesn't like Sara Lee.
Yeah. So a lot of options they can go with there.
And by the way, that you can get Tasty Cake merch.
Yes. Oh, yeah. No, I get the Tasty Claire pie shipped to me once a month on Amazon. I just have a standing order. The problem is in the summer, if I don't get to the box right away and it sits on my stoop all day, the pies melt.
Yeah, that's bad. That's bad juju.
We've missed a lot.
See what happens on a Wall Pass Wednesday?
I know, yeah. Well, and I apologize. And just so your listeners know, and I don't know if this came up or not, I'm traveling with the Hawks right now. And on Wednesdays and Fridays where I'm on the road with them, they do a shoot-around at basically the exact same time that SDH is on the air, and I have to attend those. So I'm not ghosting you guys or anything like that. I'm going to be kind of on and off for the next few months until Atlanta United season restarts. But I think I'm on with you twice this week because we aren't on the road Friday. So back to normal at least for a week.
So haven't had a chance to catch up with you on some of the moves that have been happening in the Atlanta United world. Brooks Lennon has been the latest one. What do you think?
Like it. Good depth piece. I think some people have jumped to conclusions about what this may mean for Julian Gressel. I'm not willing to go there. I think it's a good depth piece. It's someone that reportedly Darren was chasing around the trade deadline last year, or the end of the transfer window, I guess, after the Breck Shea injury. I think it just gives you cover if you have an issue with Franco Escobar injury-wise, or if something does happen with Julian Gressel, it gives you a little bit of cover. I still think that Atlanta United's got a pretty big shopping list, and this is only the start of it. You want depth at left back as well. I don't think Lennon has ever played on the left side, to my knowledge.
He started one game on the left last year. I think he's played over there a little bit, like moving around in games, but he did start one time at left back in a 4-man back line in like September.
But he's got it. But I think the point you're trying to make is that he's got some versatility. He can play in the midfield as well. And I think those interchangeable pieces are going to be really, really critical because, again, you're going to go through CONCACAF Champions League. Hopefully you're going to make another deep open cup run. You know, the season is not going to start dramatically earlier, as had been incorrectly reported. So you're going to have a lot of match compression again. And that's where guys like Brooks Lennon, who can fit in a couple different places, are going to be very, very important for you because you're not going to be able to play the same 11 night in and night out.
Now, with what we've seen from Atlanta United, you know, we're seeing the Brooks Lennon thing, and that was kind of what folks set on fire. I mean, you had Agudelo being re-entried by Toronto, which I thought was an interesting play. Yeah. And, you know, that seems to have been the loudest noise that has been made recently when it comes to re-entries and things like that. But when you look at someone like Agudelo, it just reinforces to me that winning teams want to continue to push the envelope and add those pieces to add that depth. And so you mentioned Lennon for Atlanta United, and I thought Agudelo might be the same for a team like Toronto if they agree to terms.
Totally agree. And you're right. They still have to agree to terms. And I guess the Michael Bradley thing is still a little bit unresolved in Toronto.
Yeah,
so
it is.
Like Atlanta, they still have work to do too. Honestly, the move that I loved, and I saw it yesterday. I don't know if it happened yesterday, but yesterday was the first time I saw it, was Luis Robles going to Miami.
Yes.
Love that move. Robles still has a lot of gas in the tank. Very good goalkeeper. Could even wear the armband, I think, for Miami in theory. Really like that move by Paul McDonough a great deal. I think he'll keep a very good net in Miami and will probably slot in as their opening day starter.
Yeah, I think he has to. And you've got a homegrown signing that they'll make that they acquired from San Jose and Drake Callender. Now he's got a mentor to kind of, you know, develop under. He can get his minutes with the League One team, while you have Brian Meredith, who's backing up Robles. So you're in a good spot there. Still a question about who's in charge in Miami. Still a question about big-name designated players. Those are all still reportedly coming very soon. Still in the waiting game. What club out there are you looking at with the magnifying glass right now in the offseason that you feel like has the most work to do?
Most work to do?
Yeah,
DC probably.
That's a good one.
Just because of all the impact that they're losing with Rooney and Acosta both going for nothing.
It's a thin roster right now when you look at what DC actually has.
And they were 13, a thin roster. Right, they were a thin roster at the beginning of last year too. Yeah. Even with Rooney and Acosta coming back, I want to say, oh boy, they might have only had like 18 or 19 guys on their roster going into that first game against Atlanta United.
16 players right now under contract for 2020 for them, and a couple are players that Griffin Yao and Moses Nyman, who are homegrowns that probably aren't going to be competing for minutes yet. I think Nyman's actually training in Europe right now, so he might not even stick around. It's rough for DC.
Yeah, I mean, DC, I think if you're trying to pinpoint a team that's been a consistent playoff team over the last 2 or 3 seasons that's going to have a hard time getting back unless they do some dramatic things, it would probably be DC right now. There's a long time to go in this offseason. And I think that most clubs in this league are being rather conservative. Not all of them, because you've heard some names linked to LA Galaxy, which you always seem to. And you've heard some names linked to LAFC, which are splashy, and they always seem to be in that derby. But I think the CBA uncertainty has a lot of clubs in wait-and-see mode right now, and it is difficult. It is something that you can't really move forward on anything too terribly big because you don't know what this is going to look like. You could make assumptions and assume that you're going to have, in some way, shape, or form, more cap space to sign some players, in this offseason, but you still don't know exactly what it's going to look like. And when Darren and Carlos say that's what's kind of holding them up with Gressel right now, I believe it. Because Atlanta United was right up against, from everything we've heard, we don't know for sure, but we have perceived that Atlanta United was very, very close to the cap this past season to begin with. So if you don't know what the new number is going to be, it's going to be hard to, and I think from Gressel's side too, it's hard for him. If Atlanta United's saying, okay, we have X amount of dollars between you and the cap to give you a raise, Gressel might not want to take what that number is right now because he might be assuming that cap number will go higher as well. So I think a lot of clubs are dealing with that right now. And that's why you haven't really seen that OMG move by any club in this league yet. And I don't think you're going to see it until we get a little more clarity on where the CBA is going.
The Colonel had a couple of thoughts this morning, Mike, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. First off, he wanted to know, he says, how often you figure Mike dines in prison commissaries?
That would be never. But I know people who have.
Oh. I do not, so you're one up on me. And then he said, if Sporting's owners really do, quote, inject cash, end quote, the club will be a force to be reckoned with. Already well run. They can be a league elite with money. Peter Vermes with money to spend will be a good watch.
Agreed. And if they weren't in injury hell last year, they would have been a playoff team. SKC, I think, has the potential to be one of the big clubs in this league because of exactly what the Colonel said. They are well run. And they're well supported, and they've got great facilities, and they've got an outstanding manager in Peter Vermes. They are one of the sleeping giants in this league. Jason and I have talked a lot recently about Montreal potentially being a sleeping giant in this league because that team is well supported, and their owner is a character, but their owner really wants to win. And it's a club that I think is still kind of searching for viability in not only Montreal, but really the entire province of Quebec. I think SKC could be that team too. Totally agree. If they had not dealt with the injuries they had dealt with last year, oh boy. I mean, they could have been a top 4 team in the West easily.
Haven't gotten your feedback on our new Scottish friends in Aberdeen.
Yeah, really cool. Really, really cool. And look, I think of Aberdeen as a club with a ton of history that's been the champions of Europe in my lifetime. It was early in my lifetime, but it was
you and me both,
lifetime.
Brother.
So I think it's great. I think it's going to help Aberdeen maybe even a little bit more than it's going to help Atlanta United because Aberdeen is opening a state-of-the-art new park, and I think there's a lot of things they can learn about how Atlanta United executed that transition into Mercedes-Benz Stadium. But boy, oh boy, I mean the international scouting potential synergies that you're going to have now with a club over in Scotland, it's really, really exciting and very, very tempting. And I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see the first move. Are we going to see some Atlanta United players loaned to Aberdeen? Are we going to see some Aberdeen players loaned to Atlanta United? Obviously, John Gallagher is one right now that's kind of in that mix. But
there's talk that Gallagher's loan will be extended, and he'll stay in Aberdeen through the rest of the Scottish Premier League season.
And it makes it a lot easier to do that now. Mm-hmm. Plus, it gives us more time to spend with Derek Ray, which I think is a really good thing.
Yes,
Derek was great. Had a chance to talk about all of it with him, and watching from afar, he's been a big fan of what's been happening here in Atlanta. And I think Derek, and along with the folks in Aberdeen that I've talked to, it's a completely different perception of Major League Soccer than what it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I mean, Derek's watched it from day one when he was calling New England Revolution games in year one of the league. And to see what's happening in Atlanta and this type of partnership that is so different than we've ever seen before. It's not a New York City or Red Bull situation where you have a big conglomerate coming in and buying an American team. It's not a marketing partnership where the American team is trying to get their shirts in the team store. It's the American team investing in the European club. And like you said, I think maybe some of the headline benefits of this are going to go to Aberdeen initially. I do think long-term it's just a strong partnership to have this type of club that Gallagher's a prime example. A guy who comes through the twos. There's nowhere for him to play at the first team. They don't want him to just sit on the bench. They don't want him to just kind of be stuck in 18s and not play. He has a passport. He can go play in the Scottish Premier League and get that time. And it's a step up from USL Championship and fits that in between of USL and MLS. And for a guy like Gallagher, it's a perfect fit. We've seen him. I watched the match this weekend, and Gallagher looked pretty good.
No, great points. Great points. And it's just a total win-win on both sides. It's a very low-risk, high-reward investment for Atlanta United. And, who knows? Maybe we'll even get a friendly or two out of this. It'd be fun to see. I really think of Aberdeen as a club that's got a rich tradition, a rich history, and Atlanta United is going to benefit a great deal. But I think it's also, as you've kind of alluded to, Jason, validating for Atlanta United and MLS to see a Scottish Premier League club benefiting from its tie to Major League Soccer in Atlanta United. 20 years ago, that would have been completely off the board.
Yeah, I think everybody wins. It's going to be fun to see it develop over time. Well, we got some stoppage time later this afternoon. We'll have even more to catch up on.
Yeah, we sure do. 2 o'clock on the 92.9 The Game Facebook page. And it's good talking to you again. And, John, good luck with your cell phone charger.
Yeah.
Your new cell phone charger. Good luck.
Yeah,
I hope you enjoy it.
Well, yeah, and the fact that I'm just around the corner, probably from purchasing a new phone of a cellular base. Anyway.
Oh, that's always fun when you get a new charger for a phone that you're only going to have for 2 weeks.
Yeah, kind of like buying rear shocks for a 23-year-old car, too.
Exactly.
Always fun. Thanks, Mike.
All right, see you guys.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more of your thoughts on a Wall Pass Wednesday right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Well past Wednesday on Soccer Down here. Jason Longshore, John Nelson with you this morning. You guys have more questions. We will try to deliver the through ball to put you into goal right now.
Shiva with a supporters group question. She had an email from one of the SSGs about an opportunity to run for board members. Made me think of the following question. In your opinion, what has been the reason behind the success of RSSG, and seeing that it requires a lot of volunteer time, how can this success be sustained? Can the club help in any way to support it?
I mean, the club has. I think that's the success, is that the club has worked with the existing supporters groups from not quite day one, but pretty close. And that's why it's been successful. Anytime you're dealing with different groups, it's difficult. You have different people who want to do different things, and you have a club that has to manage the whole thing, and the club has to deal with the stadium and issues, on what's allowed in the stadium and what's not allowed and all of that. So it's not an easy situation. It is a give and take. And I think Atlanta United and the supporters group leadership have done as good of a job as you possibly could to manage a situation with a lot of different people involved in it. Other clubs have not done that, and I think Chicago is a prime example of a club that the communication has been very, very bad, and that's why you've had the issues that you've had. Other clubs have had that as well. The clubs that generally have strong supporters group culture and strong visibility for those groups are the ones that have had good relationships with their club. I think at times there's an idea that you have to be antagonistic, and I don't understand that, because I think if everybody works together, everyone can benefit. The clubs obviously need to work with the supporters groups because they benefit from a great atmosphere, and the supporters groups are a big part in driving that atmosphere. So clubs who don't want to do that, I think, are missing the boat. And I think supporters groups who don't want to work with their club, it's kind of strange why that happens, because then I think they get limited in what they can do that they want to do because they don't have that strong relationship of trust. So here I think you've had that, and I think that's why it is what it is. I think other clubs that have strong relationships, it's down to the good communication, and that's what has to continue. I did see Shiva's tweet. I don't know why SSG. I think it's just SG.
Yeah. I didn't know if it meant soccer supporters group or something like that.
No, just SG. That's the
Okay.
common nomenclature from what I know anyway.
Bartimus Prime has a thought for Wall Pass Wednesday.
Okay.
He says it's Credit Card Debt Wednesday. I don't know if that means that it takes everybody till December 4th to pay off all their credit card debt during a year, but it's Credit Card Debt Wednesday. So I'm in the spirit of buying things to make you look like you have more money than you do. So his question, and he has a couple of teams off the top of his head. He says, which MLS teams were the most superficial this season? His number one is the Galaxy. Lots of flash with no real production. 2 is Chicago. Nelson Rodriguez found decent talent, but I think the club is more toxic than outsiders see. And his number 3 was Atlanta United. Too many stars to not be in the League Cup final.
It's not Chicago because they didn't get anything out of it. I mean, I think you're talking about the teams that are spending the most and getting the least is the way I would look at that. So You look at ones that are spending the most. New York City has been this for a while because New York City hasn't gotten out of the conference semifinal stage. And they're spending in just operating costs, doing quick math, basing it off of Forbes, $61 million a year is what they're spending. And they haven't gotten to a conference final yet. I got to put them there. The Galaxy spent 59, and this is overall. It's not just player side of it. This is overall. So that's where I'm going to go with it in terms of spending a lot, not getting much, and trying to be flashy. The Galaxy are probably the number one because of just how they've operated over the years, but they make money. So they're not winning the trophies like they used to since 2014. But they have won the trophies in the past. They're making money. They're a little bit harder to put in that boat. I'm going to go New York City as the number one. Just because I think they are getting the least amount of return for the amount that they're spending. Toronto won a treble a couple years ago. They're spending big on salary. They're not making money at the moment, but they're competing, and that's part of it. Chicago would be up there because they're not spending as much as others, but they're getting far, far less.
Yeah.
So they kind of fall into that boat because it's been so bad. But New York City's my number one.
Yeah, Galaxy for me was number one, but I do see your point about NYC. So I'd go Galaxy 1 and NYC 2.
NYC's trying to spend like they are a Galaxy or an Atlanta or an LAFC, and they're not getting the return of any of those, either historically or currently. So that's why I got to put them number one.
Tafka has a thread.
This is new?
Most of, yeah. It's
no,
about...
I'm kidding. He has threads a lot.
Oh, I thought you meant like newer than the one I'm looking at from 9/22 this morning.
Is it capitalized thread this time?
No.
Does he say
but he does
it's
have
a
some
thread
capitalization
to start?
inside
Does he say
said
it's a
thread.
thread to start?
No, it does not say it's a thread to start.
Okay, so
it's
this
a thread.
is not... He doesn't say it's a thread.
He doesn't, but it's multiple... Twitter refers to it as a thread since it is multiple.
I know that. I'm saying when you come out and say this is a thread, we talked about this yesterday, you got to watch out because that's... Okay, we've got a lot to get off our chest. If you don't come out and say it's a thread, then it's not as bad. That's where I was going. Go ahead. Sorry, I confused everybody.
Yeah. Here we go. He says, most of Sam Stejkal's Reformation of MLS Soccer Rules article I could get on board with, but I do not support the elimination of both TAM and GAM. If MLS were to go to intra-league transfers where real money is traded, the result would be, in all caps, bad.
Why?
Using Nagbe as an example, his salary and trade fee, which, let's be real, if it was real money, would have been way more than $1 million, would make Nagbe a designated player. This would be a frequent occurrence for many players seeking intra-MLS trades and a big limitation on trades.
But
that's his first point.
But he is a designated player. His salary is already above that. Now, I know what Tafka is saying here is you would factor that into the acquisition costs and their cap hit, but he's already above it. What it would do in this case, if you factored in that way, is it would take you above the current TAM threshold. We think. We don't know what a new contract that you would assume is going to be part of all of this will factor in, and it might not. But I get what he's saying. I agree for a different reason, but I think you can solve it in different ways. I don't know if an internal transfer market would necessarily help MLS. I do think that having some form of the ability to trade cap space, because that's what allocation money is when you really get down to it. Because it's, and I thought Tenorio and Stejkal did a good job of laying the groundwork out at the beginning of you don't think about the cap as $4 million. The cap is really all the allocation money lumped in, all the reserve roster, supplemental roster, Generation Adidas stuff, everything that's off cap, all goes back in. And it's bottom line generally around, I think, $8-9 million a team is what you're spending on your roster at the bottom of the league. So that's more of your overall spend. I think MLS has created a way that is beneficial when you start talking about managing caps in trading allocation money, which is essentially trading cap space. I do think there's a value in that. So I'm with Tafka against Tenorio and Stejskal in getting rid of allocation money. I'm not necessarily about it when it comes to the internal transfers, and for that reason about, well, it would make this and that. I think, and this is where I'll go back to, and it's something that I think I'm against everybody on. I would like to see them get away from counting the acquisition cost in the way that they do on a player's cap hit. I think the cap hit should be the salary, period. If a team wants to go out and spend a large amount on a transfer fee, go do it. I don't want to hold teams back from that. And by having it factor into the cap hit, it does. I would much rather see it either not factor in at all, or there be different ways to manipulate it, or there's just a flat charge for certain levels of transfer fee that is added to the cap number. That's not the exact number. I want to see teams be able to go out and pay transfer fees. Because if you want teams, and if you are MLS, and you are the TV networks, and you are sponsors, and you are, I think, fans, all of those should want this league to go out and get the best talent. And if an ownership group is willing to pay a large transfer fee for a player and then pay them a good amount of money and be able to make it work on your cap, whether it's a designated player, whether it's a TAM or GAM or whatever, do it. Do it, because you got to look at how some of these things work. And let's take Brian Rodriguez, for example. Brian Rodriguez, was a large transfer fee for LAFC to bring him in, a much larger transfer fee than his salary because he's a young player. He has more value in the transfer market than he does in a contract market. And that happens a lot. That happens worldwide, and MLS is just part of that. So why should that player count so much more in MLS because of the transfer fee part of it? I mean, Brian Rodriguez's guaranteed compensation, according to the MLSPA, is $1 million, just over $1 million. Now, is that including cap hit? Is that not including cap hit? This is where this stuff gets so confusing as to how all that works. But his cap hit should not be dramatically more than his salary because you paid a large transfer, because you're expecting to get a large transfer when you sell him. I hope that makes sense. I feel like the way the current structure is, and the way that in their rewrite, and I think they put a ton of work into it, and there's a lot of stuff I really agree with. But this is one that I think MLS can take a huge step forward if you limit the impact of the transfer fee on the salary cap hit. Because then teams are going to be far more willing to go out and spend $5-10 million on a young player that they feel like they can develop and flip and sell for 15, 20, 25. But they're also going to be far more willing to go out and sign a player who's going to be on $1 million a year. 1.5. If the TAM number goes up higher, the higher threshold, if it goes up, cool, 1.5, $1 million. If they feel like, all right, I can go get a player that I can pay $1 million to, I can make that fit in my cap, all that's good, I'm going to have to go pay $7 million to bring them in. But they're going to score 25 goals for me, or they're going to be a best 11 defender. Do it. I think that's a good thing to limit that impact. I think it raises the level of play without really changing the outlay from the owners. I think it makes it more willing for them to go out and spend more in the market and raise the level of play and benefit the league and the TV ratings and the interest and all of it, as opposed to hurting the league to do that. So I hope that becomes part of the discussion, because I think the league would really benefit from it.
And that was what Tafka had in his second point. He also had two ideas at the bottom about the cap space in and of itself. He said, secondly, simple cash does not fully compensate Atlanta United in his scenario. He said Nagbe's value was not just his talent, but his quality value within the cap. A $600,000 salary for his talent isn't worth trading if you're left with trying to find a replacement with the same $600,000 cap space that will also cost at least $1 million or more in transfer fees to replace. The currency of MLS is cap space, not cash. That's why.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say that's why it's so important to sell a player internationally and gain the $750,000 in GAM. That's the real return in many cases, i.e. Carmona. So if you want to get rid of TAM, that's fine, but keep and roll over TAM accounts into GAM. It allows teams to capitalize on the transfers by expanding their own cap for more talent.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page. We have some differences in the way it would work, I think, because we're getting deep into the weeds on how this stuff works. So, you know, for one, people who don't get this deep into it, sorry, I apologize, because this is complicated nonsense of MLS at times. But I think it's a little bit of an assumption about replacing a player, this and that, and what the market would do, what the market would be if you did go to it. We don't really know. You know, I mean, we're basing it off of what we've seen so far. I don't think, and I don't know. Actually, I really don't know, because I know Nagbe was under consideration from Celtic at one point. He decided not to go. I don't think Darlington Nagbe is a player who would be interested in leaving MLS, so he's probably not the best, test case here that we're talking about. It's just the most recent one for Atlanta United about a deal. I don't know if he would have that value outside, because I don't know if he would want to go. Play other players in that situation. Some would have more value outside the league. Others would have more value inside the league, and I think that would be the same either way. I want to see the league start to think differently in how it grows, and that's what I'm really hoping for out of this CBA. I don't think it's going to be a dramatic rewrite. I don't think everything is going to change, but I think it could potentially open the door to that. And the big reason why is, alongside the negotiations with the players, you have owners, new owners especially, who are ambitious, who want to spend money, who want to make their teams better, and they are, kind of restrained in doing that in different ways. So I hope there's real conversations, because I get, having followed this league from the early days and studying it and understanding why a lot of the things are the way they are, I get it. I think the growth of MLS is in large part to the way that they've structured the league and kept costs reasonable and also allowed for steady growth. But now is the time to start to expand that faster. Now is the time to accelerate it. And with a World Cup coming up in 2026, with MLS TV as a big potential source of revenue, you have to make that compelling case to your TV partners. You need to give us more money. You need to give us twice as much money. Why? Because we're going to go put that into players, because we have done X, Y, and Z to allow our owners to go out and spend more. Because what's going to draw more ratings? Big names, big teams, successful teams. We've seen that with Atlanta. We've also seen that with Zlatan Ibrahimovic. We saw that with David Beckham. We've seen that with big names in this league. We've also, and I think another opportunity here, and part of that is going to have more money to work with, is an Alan Pulido. Is, if it's Brian Lozano, if it's guys coming from Liga MX, because the ratings for Liga MX in this country are massive. Massive, massive, massive. They are the biggest. They're bigger than the Premier League. They're bigger than the Champions League. They're bigger than anything else. the Thursday night rating for Club America and Tigres was like almost 2 million people on a 10 o'clock Thursday night match. I don't know what the Sunday rating was yet, and that was a 10 o'clock Sunday night match. It's probably bigger. So if MLS can start to tap into that and have the money to spend and go out and get an Alan Pulido as a Golden Boot winner in Liga MX and get a Brian Lozano and get top talent out of Liga MX, those fans are going to come over and say, man, I watched that guy tear it up for Santos Laguna. I watched that guy tear it up for Tigres. I watched that guy tear it up for Chivas. I'm going to watch where he tears it up for next. Ratings. Ratings bring money. Talent brings ratings. Tear the shackles off and let teams spend more money. However you get there, I think getting the acquisition cost out of the cap or limiting its effect on the cap would be a huge way to do it. I think Tafka has some ways to do it. I think Tenorio and Stejskal have some ways to do it. I hope that's the overall goal, and I hope they're figuring out the process to get there.
Yeah, Tafka wanted a Larry Bird rule on disregarding transfer fees as a part of the cap.
Yeah, the transfer fee at the cap thing, that's one of my biggest issues. The Bird rule, we've talked about it a ton. I think all of us are on the same page with that. And that was something that Tenorio and Stejskal talked about with homegrown players and making sure that they don't ever count on your cap or your roster. I'm very cool with that. One thing that, and this is such a minor thing that they said they wouldn't change, that I would expand the USL short-term contract situation to be a little bit more like the G League setup with the NBA. And, we saw it firsthand last year, and Frank de Boer talked about it. When you have injuries at a position, if you have guys on a USL contract, not academy kids, because that gets into college eligibility, and that's a different conversation, but a guy on a USL contract who, you've got injuries, you're not in the emergency threshold for having a USL player be able to be on a short-term deal, but you still need extra depth. We shouldn't have situations where you have a second team and you have to put 15 guys on your bench or 15 guys on your roster, 4 guys on your bench because you have a bunch of injuries. Shouldn't be that way. If you've got USL contracted players, you should be able to call them up on a short-term basis, a limited number of times, so you can't abuse it, so you can't stockpile guys, but expand it. Look at it more like the call-ups with the G League, the 10-day contract, whatever it is. Like, there's a limitation to how many times you can do it, but you should be allowed to do it more. I don't want to see these situations where you got teams with a short bench because of that. That's kind of foolish.
A couple more on the board for the morning. KFC says that regarding Ballon d'Or, heard a few podcasts where the criteria were questioned. Said they thought it missed the best male player. Of the two, I think Rapinoe makes more sense, but agree that the best don't always win. Van Dijk was discussed for the men's winner.
Well, it's fame. I mean, you can have whatever criteria you want, and people are going to vote on it the way they want. I mean, let's be real. It's the same with any award like this, an MVP, a Heisman Trophy, a Ballon d'Or, whatever you want. You can define it in whatever way, but it's fame. And on the women's game, I think people just aren't paying enough attention. When you compare the 2019 as a year that Megan Rapinoe had versus Sam Kerr, versus Lucy Bronze, versus, I would even say versus Alex Morgan, although theirs are somewhat similar. Morgan didn't do a whole lot at the club level either. She had injuries that took her out of Orlando matches. They've been very bad for a while now. Seems like a thing in Orlando. Hopefully that changes on the men's side with Pareja. But you compare that to, players for the North Carolina Courage who won a championship, other players for Lyon who won the Champions League, Kerr and Ertz who got to the NWSL final, other players around the world who had great club seasons and World Cups. I think people are paying less attention on the women's side than the men's, but the celebrity factors in on both. It's hard to argue with Lionel Messi being the Ballon d'Or winner because he's that freaking good. It's you almost have to create a case each year why he shouldn't win it that year because he's just been that good for that long. Could have absolutely seen Virgil van Dijk win it. I don't think people would have freaked out about it. But who's the bigger name to most people? Lionel Messi. It's hard to vote against the GOAT.
Michael Head says, according to MLSsoccer.com, Cincy is replacing both kits for 2020. Has this been done before, and does this mean all clubs are replacing both kits?
I have no idea. I don't know anything about it. I did not see that they were replacing both. It is the 25th year of the league in 2020, so I'm wondering if there are some special things coming up with that. I'm sure somewhere. Well, yeah, actually, I know it's happened before because you used to have different suppliers. So if you're going further back in MLS history, you had teams moving from Nike to Adidas or Atletica or Kappa or whoever you want, Puma. So you'd get two new kits. In the Adidas years, I don't know if it's happened outside of maybe early on an expansion team might have just had to take something off the rack because the timeline was much more limited, and then their second year they had time to design something. I have to go back and double check. I'm wondering if the 2020 25th anniversary of the league has anything to do with it, and I'm wondering how dramatic the new kits are for everybody. Is it a patch that's changing? Is it something like that? They did call this white kit a legacy kit, and it's kind of funny for a team that's in its second year in MLS, but okay. It looks good. I like it. I'll be curious to see if the other kit changes dramatically. For Cincy, I read a story about that their blue kit originally was going to be a pretty basic blue home kit, and they were able to do something somewhat unique inside of one of the templates that Adidas had on that short turnaround. Have they done more? Have they done something else? I don't know. I'm not sure. I'll be curious to see what happens with all the teams, though. I just wonder if it's something about the 25th anniversary. It's got to be. It's the only thing that would make sense.
Inter Miami signed John McCarthy. Played 4 seasons with the Philadelphia Union. That just came across the wires. And also, it looks like somebody's back in training for Leipzig. I think those are 2 other things that came across the bow. What else is on your mind since? Yes. So Tyler Adams has returned. Yes, what else is on your mind before we go?
You were going to say who it was. I was like, okay, there's probably a lot of guys in training. Let's get a little more specific.
Tyler. It was meant to be a local reference. Tyler Adams returned to training.
Yeah. John McCarthy was USL Championship last year. Was he in Tampa, I believe, with the Rowdies? Good goalkeeper. He left Philly because he had been sitting behind Blake for a while and just wasn't getting that opportunity. So I'm a little surprised about him going to Miami because now that will be 3 goalkeepers plus Drake Callender, the potential homegrown. They got his rights in that trade with San Jose. You expected that they would use those to sign Callender, and they still could, and just loan him to the USL League One team, and he plays there this season. That could be the goal all along. I like McCarthy. I think he's a good goalkeeper. I don't know if he's a dramatic upgrade as the number 2 from Brian Meredith. I don't know if that means Meredith is the 3. Little surprised they signed another goalkeeper, but okay.
And what else is on your mind before we go? Because we are caught up on the Twitters.
Couple different things. We'll get into it more tomorrow, but Uli Yanez, his father, tweeted that they have not heard anything from U.S. Soccer. He stood out during the U20 team's run at the World Cup. He's at Wolfsburg after turning down a deal from the LA Galaxy where he spent time in their development system. The reason why it's a little alarming that they have not heard anything from U.S. Soccer about following his progress, he could still represent Mexico. So, just saying. Guys, somebody get in charge of doing something in this regard and delineate who's supposed to do what, because, could Yanez be part of the U23s in Olympic qualifying? Absolutely. Well, Jason Christ was trying to get a job with Real Salt Lake while he was doing the stuff with the U23s, and doing stuff with Inter Miami. So is he really going to be the person who's making these calls? Don't know. Don't know if it's Ernie Stewart. Don't know if it's Greg Berhalter. Don't know if it's somebody under Greg Berhalter. And then when you get further down the youth national team ladder, then it's even more convoluted because you don't know who's doing what because there's not many people doing anything. So don't do this, U.S. Soccer. Get this stuff fixed. Like now. There's no excuse anymore. It should have been done months ago. Fix it. USL Championship moves. Santi Moar has signed with Phoenix Rising. He's leaving New Mexico. Phoenix is also bolstering their technical side. Steve Cook is their first ever director of soccer development. He's going to oversee their new academy. You're talking about somebody who was with the Colorado Rapids, with OKC Energy on the youth side in Arizona, so he knows the market, he knows the job. And they're going to launch their academy. Very cool. USL Championship teams launching academies is one of the big game changers that can happen for U.S. soccer because MLS is never going to be in every market. There's no way MLS academies can be involved with player development across the entire country. It's impossible. It's just logistics. So the USL Championship teams in independent markets, if they can, it's only going to benefit the overall development of the American game. So kids in the Phoenix area now will have a professional academy to aspire to, and that's going to benefit the game overall, not just benefit Phoenix Rising. So love the hire, love the investment, hope to see more stuff like that. Okay, rest of the day. We've got stoppage time, 2 o'clock, facebook.com/929thegame. Tonight, come out and join us. Reformation Brewery in Canton. Michael Parkhurst is coming out to join us. We are hanging out with our friends from the Cherokee Soccer Association, talking soccer in the Canton area in Cherokee County, talking soccer as a whole, talking with Atlanta United's first captain, Michael Parkhurst. We'll be recording from 7 to 9. It's not going to be broadcast live. We're going to record it. We're going to chop it up. We're going to put it out for you guys this weekend. If you want to hear it live, you got to come out and join us. There are a lot of people who have RSVP'd for this on the CSA part of it, on our event page, on all of it. Get there early. Parking is somewhat limited right at the brewery. There's plenty of parking in the surrounding area. There's parking at the Cherokee Soccer Association office, and it's a walkable distance right to the brewery. So there's lots of options, but if you want to park close, you better get there early. And it's going to be a little chilly. It's a big venue, but some of it is outside, so bring a jacket. Make sure you are bundled up to hang out with us, have a couple beers, talk soccer, and hear from Michael Parkhurst. I'm excited to talk to Parky for the first time since his retirement. So all that is coming up tonight up in Canton. Hope to see some of you guys there. But we'll be back in the morning to talk about everything else. We'll maybe we'll share a couple clips if we're able to chop some things up for the morning. Maybe we'll drop a Parky quote for you in the morning on the show. But we'll be back to talk about everything that happens during the day today on the show in the morning, 9 o'clock, SDH, soccerdownhere.net, SDH app, and on Spreaker. Thanks for listening. Thanks for chiming in on Wall Pass Wednesday. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha Parky, y'all.